Hello, you spooktacular people. Welcome to this 608th episode of the History Ghost Bump podcast. Ghost tours for the theater of the mind. I'm your host, Diane.
And this is Kelly.
Kelly, on this episode, it's one of our favorites. We love cemeteries, and we really love haunted cemeteries. So we've got 6 of them that we're going to present to you on this Haunted Cemeteries number 31.
I can't believe it's 31 already.
I know, and each one of them has at least 5 or 6 cemeteries in them, so that's a lot of haunted cemeteries.
History tells the story of the world and of our lives. Sometimes that history goes bump in the night. Broadcasting from the center of oddity and the supernatural in Central Florida, it's the History Goes Bump podcast.
Kelly, before we get into the history and hauntings of these cemeteries, we want to welcome into the Spooktacular crew, Kristen with Eyes.
Thank you so much for joining our Facebook group.
And also, just in time for Halloween, what do we do every October?
Cemetery bingo.
Cemetery bingo! The bingo card is ready for 2025. If you are a member of the Spooktacular crew over on Facebook, you just go to the Files tab. It's the first one that's up there. Just download the PDF and print it off and head out to one or more cemeteries of your choice over the 18th and 19th of October. And you're going for blackout bingo. So you want to fill up that entire card, and whoever gets all of them will be our winner. If there's multiple people who get all of them, which rarely happens, you want to be looking for the most unique headstone that you find, and that's usually our tiebreaker for whoever has the most unique headstone then will be the winner, and you will win a t-shirt that is either you can get the HGB logo t-shirt if you want, or we have the I See Dead People Taffa
And make
t-shirt.
sure you take photos of every single one that you're marking off, please.
And if you are not in the Facebook group, don't have a Facebook account, just email us at historyghostbump@gmail.com and we will send you a card through the email. And now, this moment in Oddity.
The moment in Oddity was suggested by Michael Rogers. Diane, do you know what the definition of hirsute is?
I don't know. Is it like some really fancy pantsuit for a lady?
It means hairy, and it's usually used to describe men's chest or sometimes circus performers when they grow an excessive amount of hair on their body.
Oh, wow.
But did you know that there's also a crab by that name?
I did not.
Let me introduce you to the Kiwa hirsuta. This crustacean was discovered in 2005 in the South Pacific Ocean along the Pacific and Arctic Ridge. It is approximately 6 inches in length and is also known by its common name, Yeti Crab or Yeti Lobster.
Oh, I thought Yetis were just big, furry, weird things up in the Himalayas.
The reason for the Yeti name is due to the quantity of silky blonde to white-colored sea tie that covers the decapod's body, making it look like a furry Yeti. The crabs live along hydrothermal vents deep in the ocean. Their hairy arms and bodies collect toxins released by the hydrotherms in their environment. This process is known as chemosynthesis. They are thought to be blind, and their diets consist of epibiotic bacteria. Yummy! Our vast and deep oceans contain many strange and unusual creatures, with many of them likely not having been discovered yet. But a furry white crab that clearly resembles a Yeti certainly is odd.
I'll say.
Cemeteries just lend themselves to ghost stories. There is hardly a town that doesn't have that one cemetery that has a legend or myth connected to it. These legends are hard to prove, but even without evidence, they have staying power. And most people like to believe that their loved ones hang around even after they've died. So why not hang out at the cemetery where they're buried? In this 31st episode of Haunted Cemeteries, we share cemeteries in Arkansas, Texas, Canada, Oklahoma, Illinois, and Indiana.
So let's go to Arkansas to begin with. This is the Keller's Chapel and Cemetery in Jonesboro. The chapel and cemetery are located at 2401 Keller's Chapel Road in Jonesboro, Arkansas. The Keller family came to Jonesboro in the 1850s. And it's believed that this cemetery started as their family cemetery, which is the case with a lot of these small little rural cemeteries. They started as a family one, and then everybody's like, okay, let's make this more public. The earliest burial was for J.W. Keller in 1859. Many settlers to the area are buried here, as well as veterans of the Civil War, Spanish-American War, World Wars I and II, Korean War, and Vietnam War. The oldest person in the cemetery is a man named William Murphy Loudermilk, who lived to be 105 years old and was the last living veteran of the Confederate Army. This cemetery has a legend connected to the chapel within its borders. It is said that if a guest knocks on the door of the chapel, they will hear a knocking in return. Apparitions are seen walking in the cemetery, and the sound of babies crying is also heard. A lot of the time when we do have these legends that are in these cemeteries, it is in regards to a building that's on the property, like a church or a chapel.
Indeed. Now on to Concordia Cemetery in El Paso, Texas. It is also known as El Paso's Boot Hill. It was established in 1856 and has around 60,000 burials. The site started as a family cemetery for Hugh and Juana Stevenson, who had moved to El Paso from Chihuahua, Mexico. Juana passed in 1856, and Hugh buried her in what would become Concordia Cemetery. People from El Paso would travel the 3 miles to Concordia to bury their dead. In the 1890s, various areas were bought and set aside for the Jews, the Catholics, the Masons, the Chinese, the military, and blacks. There are Buffalo Soldiers here, Texas Rangers, gunslinger John Wesley Hardin, and lawman John Selman.
The Old West gunslinger Hardin is said to be one of the spirits in the cemetery. There's also a lady in white, of course there is. People call her Lady Flo. I don't know if she sells Progressive Insurance or...
Oh my word.
The hoofbeats of horses are heard, and some people claim to catch children's laughter. 3 sisters on a ghost tour in El Paso in 2012 asked the tour guide to take a picture of them in Concordia Cemetery. When they looked at the picture later, they could see what seemed to be a dark figure walking to the side of them. Their brother brightened the picture, and there is a clear dark figure of a man in a hat walking. If there wasn't a real person walking there, it certainly is interesting. But what makes it even more interesting is that this figure has popped up in several pictures through the years. Here is an image of that. And Kelly, it's hard to know because it's like, are you guys sure there was nobody walking by you? Because it does really look like a person. Although you would think if you lightened it, that part of their clothing would seem a little bit lighter, because most people on a ghost tour aren't wearing like jet black pants and jet black shirt, jet black hat, and you can't even see their face really. And it's walking away from them to the side. So it would be very peculiar if this was somebody who was on the tour with them. And I would assume it would be, because usually you can't go into a cemetery at night unless you're on an official tour. So I don't know. Maybe there really is something to it.
Ghost Adventures visited Concordia Cemetery during their 13th season. This was part of their Route 666 Halloween special. The crew was investigating the nearby DeSoto Hotel, where Richard Ramirez may have conducted satanic rituals, and it is believed that these rituals spilled over into the cemetery. The X camera picked up 3 shadowy figures walking in the distance after Billy does a reading. Billy is so convinced that these are real people, he calls the police to come, but they find no one in the cemetery.
So it's interesting. He thought maybe somebody was crashing their filming, because of course they've got crew and stuff there, so it would attract people to come in. But didn't find anybody, so what was that? Next, we're going to head up to Canada, to Hamilton, Ontario, and this is Burkholder United Cemetery. Some of the first people to arrive on Hamilton Mountain were Jacob Burkholder and his wife Sophia, and they came in October 1794. Some of their land was used as a cemetery starting in 1800. The cemetery was officially founded in 1839 as a public burying ground, and a small log school was built just inside the entrance. I was like, wait, they built a school right inside the cemetery? I don't think we've ever heard that before.
I certainly haven't.
It would be one thing to have like a chapel there, and maybe you have a school connected to the chapel, or you convert the chapel into a school, but to specifically build a school in a cemetery? I would have loved to have gone there. A small church was added in 1850, and everyone called it the Little White Church. That church stood for 100 years until it was demolished in 1955 and replaced with the bigger Burkholder United Church. Stories of weird activity in the cemetery date back to the small church, which would have a strange light run along the roof of the church every time a prominent person died. So let's say the mayor of the city died. All of a sudden, they'd see this weird light going across the church top. It's weird. I've never heard anything like it.
Interesting. Huh.
Occasionally, this orb of light would float over to the house of the person who passed and rest above it. So it's almost like it's traveling through the church on top into the neighborhood, and there it is over their house. People claimed that this was an angel of some sort. Some claim that the new church has the same mysterious light running along its roof, so it's like it's continued over from the Little White Church. The churchgoers were very superstitious. They believed that if the cemetery claimed a victim, 2 more deaths would follow. Kind of like our deaths in threes today when it comes to celebrities.
Right.
So basically, what I'm guessing here, what they're trying to say is, if one person died, there are going to be 2 more to go with them, so you don't want anybody dying in town. A woman in black is seen walking in the cemetery. There's supposedly a double headstone for a wife and husband, and when people bend down to get a better look at the husband's name, his wife appears and scares them away. I don't know if she just doesn't want them looking at his tombstone. It's weird. Some pioneer doctors reputed to have done some grave robbing in the cemetery, once getting away with a body that he boiled pieces of in a huge wash boiler in his house. A servant girl reported him and he was busted. Yikes.
Ew.
I can only imagine. She's like, what is that smell in the kitchen?
Ugh. It's not brisket.
No, it's not. Secrets in the sauce.
Yeah. God. Next, we have the Arapahoe Cemetery, which is located in Arapahoe, Oklahoma, and was established in 1893. The town of Arapahoe was established after the 1889 Oklahoma land run. This had been the land of the Cheyenne, and the first American settlers arrived in 1892. The most notable person buried here is Jesse J.W. Lawton. He was the newspaper editor of the Arapahoe Bee for 32 years. As a matter of fact, he passed away at the newspaper office.
Talk about being dedicated to your job.
Yeah.
A man named Walter S. Mills wrote of his passing, "Lawton is dead. The word flew from lip to lip last Monday, and it was true. An old-timer has passed on. One who for more than 30 years sat at his old table at the Bee office is gone. And with the passing of Jesse W. Lawton, Arapahoe loses its strongest character. He had his faults. He had his enemies. He knew it, and like a man, did not try to deny either. Lawton's pen cut like a knife at times, and his blows were often sledgehammer blows that raised welts and sometimes left scars. But no lick he ever struck was without a purpose. When timid men scudded for cover, Lawton took up his pen and hit the bullseye. He ridiculed the foibles and lambasted the idiocies of the community. In a larger town or a more sophisticated community, they would have laughed, because the thing did not sound so personal. But in a community that has only 1 or 2 fat men and 1 or 2 extra lean ones and only a handful of all kinds, generalities took the form of personalities, and often one with an imaginary injury went gunning for the editor. So basically, when he described who he was going after, everybody's like, oh, I know who that is. Lawton had a keen sense of humor and a dauntless courage. He never advocated the side of wrong, of lawlessness, and he didn't know the meaning of the word policy. But long after lesser lights are forgotten, Lawton will be remembered. He was a man of brain and of character. In other environments, he would have been a great newspaper man. Arapahoe has lost its staunchest friend, its truest advocate. Custer County has lost its one outstanding editor. The Bee will go on, but the personality that created it is gone.
Oh,
I just love the way that he eulogized him there. I thought that was neat.
absolutely. Quite the tribute. The haunting here at the cemetery is connected to Robina Smith. She passed away in 1936 when her car she was riding in hit a creamery truck on U.S. Highway 183. When police arrived at the scene, they found several victims frozen to death.
I was like, how long did it take the police to get there?
Robina had died when her head impaled on the floor-mounted gear shift. She doesn't haunt her plot, but apparently her father does. The haunting started when her father passed in 1972. He had worried that his daughter wasn't a Christian, so she wasn't saved, and his spirit is heard wailing. EVPs have been captured of him saying, "Oh no, oh my God, Rabina has not been saved." Others claim to hear it audibly. How sad.
I agree. Auxiliary Sable Cemetery we have up here next, and it is said to be, by a lot of people, the scariest cemetery in Illinois. Which is saying something, because they have some pretty scary cemeteries there.
I was going to say, quite the title then.
The cemetery is located along Brown Road in Minooka, Illinois. This is one of the oldest rural burial grounds in the area and was founded in 1834, with many burials going back to the 1800s. There are a few hundred burials. What makes the cemetery creepy is that one must drive through a forest on a narrow gravel road to reach the iron gates at the entrance. A windowless shed at the back of the cemetery has been rumored to be a portal. This was more than likely a receiving structure for storing bodies to wait for temperatures to warm up. It's made of stone with metal doors. And I watched a video of a couple that were there visiting, and it is a really creepy looking, like at first I thought it was more like a shed kind of thing. But then I was like, no, that actually looks like a really, really large mausoleum with these two like metal doors in front of it. So it's like, what was that for? And if it was, a receiving tomb, sometimes you wonder if those have more possibility to be haunted because the body's just put in there temporarily and not properly buried yet. I don't know if a spirit has to be in limbo. I mean, there are some cultures that believe a spirit has to hang around until the body's taken care of. So who knows, but it's a creepy looking structure. The main ghost here is a little girl named Adeline Stevenson, and much of the activity happens to people's cars. Their electrical may go crazy with lots of bells and whistles and lights going off. Cars may even stall or not restart. Electric windows go down even without a key in the ignition. I want to know how they get that done. I have a hard time sometimes getting my window to go down with a key in the ignition. Darn cars and all their electrical stuff. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to actually manually unroll something.
Most of our listeners are probably thinking, what do you mean roll them down?
Huh? How does that work?
I shouldn't say most, but a lot of our
A few of them, yes. Mysterious myths and fires have been seen. Many people have shared their experiences online, and we're going to share some of those with you now.
Not right posted. As soon as we went through those gates, the whole energy changed. This was around 11 at night. You just knew we were not supposed to be there. I was doing a spirit box, and I'll never forget what it said. Thomas, crash, die. At the time, I didn't take it seriously, but 2 years later, a buddy of mine named Thomas crashed and passed away, and it makes me think.
Oh, so it wasn't like saying that a spirit in the cemetery that was buried there had died in a crash. It was like predicting the future.
Apparently.
Ooh, that's weird. My Knowledge and Experience wrote, you gotta love these usernames. I've had friends go out there and were demonically attacked. A blue glowing dog jumped on the hood, car engines died, the windows would go up and down, and the gate closed behind them after they crossed the bridge and came into the cemetery. There were some bad bleep guys, and they still won't go back into that cemetery. I have more info. I don't want to post it, but I think much worse happened out there. What in the world? I mean, they do say this is the creepiest one in Illinois, but I'm like, a glowing blue dog?
A little extreme.
My advice would be all those spirits need to be left alone, and I truly hope they cross over or find some kind of rest, salvation, or find their way home to heaven. Many of the headstones inside Auxiliary Sable Cemetery date back to the early 1800s.
Awesome, remarked. These names.
Hey, I'm going to go with the username awesome. You know what I'm going to choose, Kelly? So cool.
Awesome, remarked. Went during the middle of the night with a group of like 5. Because why wouldn't you just say 5? Are you not certain if there were 5 people there? Whatever.
Like 5, I think.
We absolutely won.
No, that's 10,000%.
10,000%.
Not just 1,000%, Kelly.
We absolutely, 10,000%, saw a ghost car come down the narrow wooded road.
Now, what in the world is that about? Because Haven't heard any other stories about that. And what's unusual is these are all different experiences that they're having, and it's not the typical ones that you hear about this cemetery. There's something off about this cemetery, commented. I go to a lot of cemeteries because I find them peaceful, and I like to take photos of the cemeteries I've been to. I've never felt that any of them were haunted or had a weird feeling, even at Bachelor's Grove, until I went to this one. So this one freaked them out more than Bachelor's Grove. I went twice in the same day because a friend wanted to come along later, and I caught a glowing white orb and a transparent dark orange glow with my professional camera. Interesting. One in the day and one at night. I'm officially spooked out. When I was here alone in the day, I had a really weird feeling. I heard crying twice from the forest and lots of shuffling and footsteps behind me. When I walked up to the rusty door, there was a loud bang once coming from inside, and it scared the bleep out of me because it was completely quiet until I walked up to it. I'm not blowing smoke. I have never, and that's in all caps, encountered anything unusual in cemeteries before. This one, really weird.
Wow. Handprints and a welcoming feeling wrote, handprints in the dust on my buddy's previously clean car. We go all the time. Using a box, the spirits like to speak to us, as we're younger, both 17. They seem to remember us. I wore pink the first time I went, and every time I go, they seem to say, he's back, pink, over and over.
Wow. So that shows like remembering him.
Yeah, intelligence.
They're like, why is that guy wearing pink?
It's surreal, but I don't feel weird being there. I feel like I'm welcome. It's odd.
Interesting. So definitely some stuff going on there. Would love to know if anybody else has been there. And finally, we're going to finish this up with Step Cemetery. This is said to be the most haunted cemetery in Indiana. So now we're going from the creepiest in Illinois to the most haunted in Indiana. And we cover a lot of cemeteries in Indiana because I have a book specifically called Haunted Cemeteries of Indiana. We'll be talking a little bit about that. So I have all kinds of cemeteries for Indiana. Hadn't done this one yet, and I went, wait, this is the most haunted? So this is located near Bloomington, Indiana, and it was named for Reuben Stepp, who owned the land. And that's Stepp with 2 P's at the end. Apparently, the cemetery was already on the land when Stepp bought it in 1856. So we don't know who all was buried here originally, how long it had been here. Obviously, it had been there for some time. The only thing that we do know is that the oldest burial is for Isaac Headstocks, and that was in 1850. So it's at least been there for 6 years before Reuben Stepp had even bought it. This Isaac Headstocks was a veteran of the War of 1812. It's unclear how many people are buried here, but only around 50 tombstones remain. So they think a lot of them have either been removed, maybe these were unmarked graves, or they were wooden and just haven't lasted through the years. It is a rural cemetery, so it doesn't get much care. The state of Indiana bought it in 1929. But before that, a group of people who had some weird religious beliefs would meet in the cemetery. And these were not Satanists. This is a whole different group. They were known as Crabites. Which, Kelly, did you have any idea that this was part of this show before you chose as the oddity a crab?
Not a clue, but now I want some crab.
And this is crab with 2 B's. So we've got Stepp with 2 P's, crab with 2 B's. And while this might sound like a tasty appetizer, it's definitely not. A man named Reverend William Crab founded a cultish religion named Church of the Firstborn. He had quite a following in the early 1900s because he was a great orator, even though he had little education. He detested worshiping inside a meeting house, wanting to be out in nature. So he would bring his flock of 300 out into the woods near the cemetery, and he would clamber up on a tree stump and start preaching. And then he would bring out the snakes, Kelly. Oh, yes. These were snake handlers. So here we go. And now I have to wonder, do you have your own cult, Kelly? Because I've watched you handle quite a few snakes in my time. Thank God no rattlesnakes.
Well, I have with hooks.
I know
not
you
around
have,
here.
but I haven't seen that. Thank God. I probably pee myself. This is really how Reverend Crab got his start with people following him. He was like a sideshow who charmed people into listening to him. Crab asked for no money, and he fathered 13 children, 12 of them girls. He got his followers comfortable with handling rattlesnakes, And they would speak in tongues and sometimes even dance naked among the tombstones.
Whee!
Sounds like a real Christian kind of church there. Everybody take off your clothes, grab a rattlesnake, and let's go.
It's boogie.
The group eventually moved on, but they left in their wake the negative energy they may have conjured in the cemetery with their bizarre rituals.
After the state took over the cemetery, stories began to circulate about haunting activity. There was a tree stump in a far corner that had the appearance of a chair, and so people started calling it the Warlock Chair. This was next to an infant's grave, and visitors would claim to see a woman in black visiting that grave. She often sat in the stump chair and appeared to be rocking. People would swear she was holding a baby as she rocked. On some nights, she would have no baby and would be heard weeping. She disappears when approached, and that isn't a good idea to approach her, because sometimes visitors have had trouble starting their cars or their headlights won't work.
She's a little vindictive. Don't get near me. A woman named Annie Hacker lost 3 of her children, and she was so broken by that people believe she may be the crying woman in black who's returned to the cemetery. There's a curse connected to the Warlock Chair, too. Anyone who sits in it will have misfortune come upon them, and there are some who claim that the person who sits on the stump will die within the year. So don't test it. A story claims that a German shepherd who jumped onto it was found dead the next morning. Ashley Hood wrote that book that I mentioned, Haunted Cemeteries of Indiana, back in 2020. And she shares that one evening when she was in the cemetery with a group, they heard the weeping of a woman, and it was very chilling. She writes in her book about other legends connected to the Lady in Black. In another version of this story, Anna was a wife and mother. Her husband Jacob was killed in a quarry accident and buried in Step Cemetery. Anna reportedly turned all of her attention to their 16-year-old daughter, Emily, and became protective of the girl. When Emily was invited to a dance, Anna had her reservations but allowed her daughter to attend. The weather turned rainy that night. Returning home from the dance, the car with Emily and her date slid off the road, hitting a tree. Emily was killed instantly. Anna had her daughter buried in Step Cemetery next to Jacob. And then she began visiting Emily's grave every day and was often seen by locals draped in black, sitting on the large stump and speaking to her daughter as if she were still alive. Much as with the previous tale, the sorrowful spirit of Anna is said to remain in the cemetery, mourning the loss of her daughter. And there is potentially some truth to this tale, as there is a Jacob and Anna Adkins buried in the Step Cemetery. The couple had 11 children, one of whom, Ida May, passed away at the age of 17. So is it possible that this is the story we're getting? It's not Emily, it's Ida. But Ida May was buried in Fry Cemetery, also known as Taylor or McGowan Cemetery, located at North Low Gap Road in the Morgan Monroe State Forest, not far from Step Cemetery. So is her spirit maybe coming over to where her parents are buried? I don't know. There's a grave for a baby named Lester buried near the Adkins family that always has gifts piled up around it, particularly toys. It is always so tragic to see these graves for infants. Kelly, at least he had a name. A lot of the time we'll just see like infant and then the last name of the family because they didn't even get a chance to name the baby.
Right.
Poor little Lester didn't even have a chance to live. He was born Paul Lester and stillborn. His parents were Olethea and Harley Lester, and they were 16 and 21 respectively. Certainly not equipped to deal with losing a child at birth. Trying to find a real history behind baby Lester is, as the Orange Bean Indiana blog describes it, as finding, quote, a few flakes and nuggets, but mostly just sludge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You gotta hate when your research leads to sludge. And the legend goes on to claim that Lester died in a car wreck, or was it a fire? Or who knows, ... His mother, the Lady in Black, comes to visit his grave often. People hear her weeping, and sometimes she screams. Ashley Hood shares, in truth, baby Lester passed away after taking only a few breaths in 1937. His mother, Olethea Pryor Lester, and father, Harley Lester, eventually divorced. Olethea later married James Walls and moved to Indianapolis. It's unlikely that Olethea is the woman in black, as she lived to be 85 years old, passing away in 2007, long after the reports of the woman in black began. She is buried in Oaklawn Memorial Gardens in Fishers, Indiana. So we still have a mystery. Who is the lady in black? Many of the legends connected to the cemetery started in the 1950s and increased in the 1970s as young people visited the cemetery for late-night parties and shared the stories. They embellished real things as well. For example, remember, Kelly, we talked about the German Shepherd jumped on the Warlock chair and died? A German Shepherd did die, but it was at the hands of a group of cruel boys who found themselves in court for their actions. So I hope they got some time in jail for that as well. Another story is told about a son of Reuben Stepp dying over a property dispute and being buried here at the cemetery, and he supposedly rises to confront people trespassing in the cemetery. And they don't like trespassers in the cemetery, so it may not just necessarily be a ghost. It could be a real person running you off. But the only Stepps buried here are Reuben and one of his grandsons who died as an infant, so it couldn't be one of his grown sons. A similar story predates the Stepp family and claims that the property dispute was between two sons of the previous owner. They decided to have a duel because their father had passed without telling them which of them was to inherit the land. I mean, isn't that how you should always handle it, Kelly? Forget about court. Let's just have a duel. We'll figure out who gets it. And unfortunately, they managed to kill each other, so neither is getting the land there. No graves seem to back up this story, but there are those that claim there is at least one angry spirit in the cemetery. This entity could be connected to the Crabites. There is also the spirit of a woman wearing a long white dress that is thought to be connected to the Crabites as well. Another ghost here is said to belong to a young woman who was murdered in the nearby Morgan Monroe State Forest. Because her killer was never found, she wanders the cemetery near where her body ended up. There was a murder of an Indiana University student named Ann Harmeyer in 1977. Her car was found on Indiana 37, abandoned because it had overheated. Her body was found 2 miles from Martinsville, which is 12 miles away from Stepp Cemetery. So more than likely not her. So who is this young woman seen in the cemetery?
And then there is a legend about a hook woman.
You know the dude with the hook?
I
You
know.
hear those all the time.
Scary. She lost her hand in an accident she had that killed her young son. She replaced it with a hook, and she would visit her son's grave in the Stepp Cemetery. After she died, she continued to visit with her hook hand. She chases off trespassers in the cemetery, and this cemetery even has stories about Bigfoot, not Yeti.
Well, I mean, he goes by both names.
I
really.
know. About Bigfoot being seen in the nearby woods and a group of strange men wearing white cloaks.
I'm sorry, Stepp Cemetery has everything. So I could agree this probably is the most haunted cemetery in Indiana. I mean, it checks all the boxes for this place. Lots of creepy, weird stuff. When I read Bigfoot's here too, I'm like, oh, come on. Really? It really does make sense that there would be spirits in cemeteries since this is where bodies are buried. But we do always wonder, who'd want to hang around their dead and decaying body? Are these cemeteries haunted?
That is for you to decide.
Lots of great places to check out. Maybe one of the cemeteries you go for cemetery bingo is going to be a haunted one too. Ooh.
Or maybe one of the ones we listed.
Yes. Check
Let
them
us
out.
know.
I'm sure they've got good headstones too, although sometimes these rural cemeteries don't have as much symbolism on them because some of them have like homemade stuff and everything.
True.
But yeah, I just love these episodes. I am getting to where I'm kind of running out of haunted cemeteries. So if you hear about any, let us know. We'd love to have you check out our website at historygoesbump.com. And if you'd like to send us some feedback, you can do that at historygoesbump@gmail.com. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I've been your host, Diane.
And this has been Kelly.
You take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This episode is brought to you by our executive producers.
If you would like to support the show, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/historygoesbump.
Many settlers to the area are buried.
They're
Buried.
buried.
They're buried.
Somebody wants a beer.
I do. A pumpkin one, because it's October. Many settlers
Oh boy.
I sound like I've been drinking beer already.
It is also known as El Paso.
El Paso.
El Paso. Mouth didn't work. The site started as a family cemetery for Hugh and Juana Stevenson, who had moved to El Paso. I'm going to say it like that again.
I don't know why you can't say El Paso.
New York City.
I just was thinking, I totally was thinking about salsa right when you said that. I was like, salsa commercial.
Need some chips and salsa.
Yeah. Stories of weird activity in the cemetery bait back.
They bait back.
They bait back. They're catching some fish there.